All right, so this lecture is going to be on it's going to be on Descartes, but we're going to be talking about the movement from Aristotelian physics, so that common sense physics, to the scientific revolution, and give the reason for why Descartes does his crazy work in the Meditations, right? So a lot of you guys, when you read the Meditations, you should have read it and been like, dude, what the hell is this? What am I reading? Right, so Scott, did you read and do the quizzes already? No. Hey, Freddie, did you?
Twice.
Okay.
I didn't actually.
Yeah. So for a lot of you guys for those of you guys who read the Meditations, you should have been like, dude, this sounds like almost a waste of time. Of course I exist, right? Of course I have a body. Of course I can generally trust my senses, right? Why is this guy, René Descartes, one of the most important thinkers, period? This guy invented the X and Y axis, right? We call that the, what do you call it, Stephen? The Cartesian plane, right? A good bulk, if not most of the geometry you do after junior high is Descartes. Yeah, I mean, the guy is so gosh dang important, but he's also extremely important in pacifying the sort of hysteria that comes with the scientific revolution. And so to sort of contextualize what's going on with this scientific revolution, right, we got to remember the science we had beforehand, this common sense physics, right, this Aristotelian physics. So remember, we had our list of atoms, our indivisible pieces, material pieces. That was fire, air, water, and earth. Fire was, I mean, they had three behaviors or states of being, but we're only listing two. Fire is, let's see here, it's hot and it's light. It's air is cold and it's light. Water is, wait, something's not right. Oh, yeah, that's correct. Water is also cold, but it's heavy. And earth is hot, but it's heavy, right? And this explains material matter moving vertically, right? So like, this is Aristotelian physics, right? This is that common sense stuff. So when I drop this marker, it goes straight down. And why does it go down? Because it's made of earth, and earth is heavy. When the rain starts pouring down the way it does, all this stuff gathers up here, right? When you get enough of that water up there, it goes down because it's what? It's heavy. When you breathe and it's cold and you see that air go up, it goes up because it's light. When you light something on fire, you see the freaking flames go up because fire's light, right? Remember we talked about violence being the cause of these atoms moving left and right? Yeah, this piece of earth goes this way, right? Because my body, my object, instructs violence on it, right? But if it were to just be left alone to its own natural state to go up and down, right? Okay, so we got an explanation for motion. Remember, we're talking physics here. We have an explanation for motion in all these different directions for, well, just inanimate material, okay? But then we were given a metaphysics here. And that metaphysics was a metaphysics of potentiality and identity and purpose. All these things that we feel right now, that we feel as a part of our world. We had a scientific language that explained what we saw rather nicely. So think about that truth part 3, where I said there's A and there's B. And what do I do when I look at the competitors between these propositions? Oh, I look at the facts and I see which one seems to make the most sense from what I see. What's more consistent? And man, a science that talks about potentiality, identification, and purpose, man, I feel like I got a purpose. I feel like I have the freedom to choose to live within this purpose or not. And I feel like I have a true identity here. I'm a person. I have an essence inside of me, right? And so the metaphysics went something like this. We had 4 causes. In the same way that the natural state of the atoms cause objects to behave the way they do on their own, we had 4 causes over here. We had our material cause, and then we had our formal cause, then we had our efficient cause, and then we had our final cause. So the material cause, this is, well, what do you think? Stephen, you weren't here last Tuesday. Yeah, all the stuff, yes. All the material that makes up all the object. That's 100% right. Yeah, this is the stuff. The stuff objects are made from. This is the atoms, man. Right? Our periodic table of atoms, right? Okay. Then we have our formal cause. This is the form that the material takes. So I'm Earth, and this marker is Earth, but I have a different form than the marker, right? And then Scott, we had our efficient cause, and you had such a good answer for what that was. The efficient cause was what?
To become the best form.
Almost. You're jumping ahead. Almost. Efficiency, right? This is what you what? Starts with a G, ends in an O. It's what you do. It's what you do, right? This is, I mean, you were kind of right in your first answer, right? This is what you are, I guess you could say, designed or meant. Yeah, this is your purpose. This is what you're meant to do. This is what you're made for. And then we have the final cause, and this is what? This is the thing that causes the other causes. Yeah, the determiner, right? The machinist, the engineer, the design giver, yeah? And so we talked about this in terms of chairs. So with the Platonic worldview, we said that these were both chairs, these different materials are both chairs because they partake in the ideal concept of chairhood. Aristotle says no more, right? That's not how it is anymore. These things are both chairs because they take the form of a chair. The material takes the form of a chair. And it has the potential to do what a chair does. Right? And then boom. And then you want to say, right, remember this is that common sense physics. Yeah, yes, it To know the action of the thing is to know the thing itself. Here we go. You hear that scientific method being rattled off, right? Okay. So Stephen, real quick, right, before you take off, go make money moves. We're missing one part of this story. How did the chairs get here? Yeah, someone created chairs, and who created the chairs? Who did we say last time was China or something? Yeah, someone somewhere, right? It's actually made. These were made here, right? Yeah, the chair maker is the final cause in this regard. But then we ask, okay, what about the efficiency of a dog, right? The efficient cause of a dog. Remember we said this, the telos, the purpose of the dog. Dogs are not chairs. Why aren't dogs chair? Not because of some crazy concept, but because they don't do what chairs are supposed to do. Dogs do what dogs do, right? But yes, 100%. You know, that's why he thinks that's why he's doing biology the way he's doing. He's creating biology the way he does. He's looking at the function of a dog and what separates it from all other animals, like a cat or a bird or a person. We all function differently, so we get different identities. We all do different stuff. And this essential difference gets identified as our essential property. Yeah, but we need a final cause, and that final cause is going to be who, Scott? Aristotelian speaking. Going to be, so who gives me my purpose? Who gives me my potential to become a good person? Yeah, God, man. It has to be. Yeah, there you go, Stephen. Okay. You're leaving on some confirmation, huh? No. Well, I'm right. I know what I need to know, right? Okay. All right. I'll see you guys. So, right, remember real quick, before we get to the panic that ensues with Galileo and Copernicus and Bacon and the rest of them. Well, what happens here? Once we know this the way that we're supposed to be, we end up getting a really nice notion of ethics. That to be a person is to have the potential to do what people do. And to be a person is to have the potential to do what people do, but to be a good person is to do what, Scott?
Fulfill your purpose.
Yes, there we go. To become what you were made to do. To instantiate, to make your telos actualize. There we go. There's that fact talk. To make it actual. So a good acorn isn't an acorn that just has the potential. To be an acorn, you've got to have the potential to do what acorns do. And acorns are the only guys that do what? Become oak trees. But a good acorn is an acorn that actually becomes the oak tree. There we go. And in order for us to be considered good in this way, well, in some regard, we have to be responsible for it. Yeah? That there's a notion of freedom here, hidden behind this potentiality, right? Yeah, a choice, at least when it comes to people, right? Okay, so we have a good science, right? This is good. This lasts us for thousands of years, no joke. This is common sense. Why do things fall? Why is it so heavy to lift this, or why is it so hard to lift this up? Well, god dang, that thing is heavy. right? When you live up to your potential, we call it a good thing, right? If you go through life and you never really sow you never really, if you're just like a half-assed slacker and you look back on the rest of the life, you feel like you did what? You feel like you wasted your potential. You wasted what you're supposed to do. You didn't live up to your purpose, right? Yeah, what is laid up on the board right now is the basis of almost everything we have in the West. Our language still gets spoken in this way. Yeah. And so just real quick, why is the Earth the center of the universe? Because it's the heaviest it's made of Earth. Where else is it supposed to be but right down there? Yeah, okay. So this scientific language expresses everything that we want to mean. Good job, language. All right. Now, some crazy stuff happens. Okay, the medieval period. So we go ancient period. Once Aristotle and Alexander the Great kind of take over, a little bit of time goes on, and then we leave the ancient period and we go into, right, after Christ and all that stuff happens, we go into the medieval period, or what we call the classical period. And this is where the Catholic and Muslim churches create our entire university system, right? They're at the forefront of education and philosophy, right? They're in charge of everything. And man, they're really busting their ass, and they're doing extremely important work. Okay? They're doing extreme. And by the way, let me remind you guys watching this, you have no clue if I'm a Christian, if I'm a Muslim, if I'm an atheist or anything. You'll never know, right? Huh? Or if I'm a Wiccan, right? Something crazy like that. Or if I'm a furry, right? You don't know anything. Right? I'm not a furry, I promise. So this next talk, I want you guys to really try to you can't trust me, but what's going to happen next is it's not the Rick and Morty history, it's the real history. Okay. The Catholic Church and the Muslim Church really worked their asses off to preserve and promote intellectualism in the West. So that's like Middle East and over, right? We get an entire university system built. All of our ancient texts are preserved through the Muslim Church and passed on to the Catholic Church, in which the Catholic Church also starts scribing out all these things, right? There's a sort of attitude of truth worship between both camps. Neither of them have anything to hide at the time. At least I don't think so, right? It's wholeheartedly a pursuit towards church, right? Towards a pursuit towards the truth. Yeah. And there's a nice theology that runs off of the back of this Aristotelian physics, right? Think about the idea think about our Christian ideals here where we're at, and then meditate on this idea of potentiality, on what it means to be good, right? On this sort of purpose you have for your life. And you have guys like Aquinas and Avicenna, right? And they are really making sense of our theological worldviews through this Aristotelian physics. They think it's all true, right? Well, some crazy stuff starts happening. Okay? You have a Catholic monk in Poland. Scott, do you know who I'm talking about? His name starts with a K. Or no, a K. Copernicus. Right, Copernicus. Does Copernicus start with a K? No, I don't think so. No, it for sure doesn't. Yeah. Copernicus does what? What is it? Copernicus associated with? seems like what? When he looks up into a sky, when he looks up into these medieval telescopes, what's he start seeing?
Stars.
Yeah, stars. And what about the stars? It doesn't seem like the stars are doing what? Rotating around. No, moving around who? Moving around us, right? We think that the Earth, round. So this is no longer just a world, this is Earth inside the. We think that the Earth is the center of the universe. Why? Well, because it's heavy. But why do we accept this explanation? Because, well, no shit, it looks like this. Okay? We don't just adopt it because Aristotle said it. We adopt it because, well, god dang, man. That's how it seems like it is. It seems like we're at the center of the universe. Copernicus starts looking up there, and it kind of looks like everything's rotating around where? Around that goddamn sun of ours. Copernicus doesn't come to the conclusion, though. If I remember correctly, Copernicus doesn't come to the conclusion that we are the center of the universe. I mean, that we're rotating around the sun. I'm almost certain that's two Belgian scientists, philosophers, right, who take what Copernicus did and piece it together. But Copernicus is freaking out because the way it looks like things are working up there, it looks like there's a sun that's kind of maybe rotating around us, and then everything's rotating around the sun while we're fixing this weird picture. Now, what I'm saying right there, that doesn't seem to match our language here in our science. Okay, so that's weird, right? They told Copernicus, all right, bro, you're actually not making much sense, right? Imagine this. Imagine that you guys were going on third grade field trips to, like, you know, science centers in LA and all this other stuff, and you didn't see like these huge replicas of our solar system or whatever, right? And you guys would just be walking out of the world and looking at the skies yourself. You would think that we're what? We're standing exactly still. You would think that, right? And then you got this weird Catholic weirdo, okay, saying, hey, I actually don't think any of that stuff's going around us. I think it's going around that big star of ours, or that big celestial being up there. And then you get two Belgian freaks, right, also Catholic, who are, making a run at it that it's actually us that's moving. And how do they show that? Well, they kind of show that with diagram. A fucking diagram, that's weird. Remember, we don't have diagrams up here. We just have observation, and that's freaking it. We are purely empirical in our science with a little bit of reason snuck in there. Yeah? And so, all right, that's weird. They tell everyone, hey, man, shut the fuck up. You're saying weird stuff, right? We don't accept your science as truth. And there's also a hint of, well, I thought we were the center of the universe, right? There's accusations that the real reason why the church rejects this why they're so resistant to this idea is because it makes us not the center of the universe. It makes it look like God's creation for the earth is actually not for us, that we're actually just kind of accidentally in there. I don't buy that one as much as it just sounds like a dumbass idea. It's just stupid. It's against the science we have now. It's unscientific, right? It's unscientific. Our language doesn't hold for this sort of thing. Yeah? Okay, but that's not all that happens, right? This is like the biggest one, right? Or one of the biggest ones. So the heliocentric model of the solar system is about to get erased, right? We have this guy named Galileo. And Galileo is taking balls of two different sizes, and he's going up on top of towers. Not really the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? But whatever. And he's dropping these balls, and he's noticing something. He's dropping them at the same time, and he's noticing something. He's noticing that they're falling. No, the opposite. Yeah, they're dropping at the same freaking rate. Okay,
Now this is weird. And why is that weird? What's so scary about this? What's the problem? If you got a bunch of Earth, the more Earth you get, it should be heavier. And heavy things do what? They go down. But here we got really heavy, and then we got not as heavy, and yet they both go down at the same goddamn time. This is a complete disruption to our entire physics. Okay. But there's some stuff still not making sense here. Okay. There's some big stuff not making sense here. What do you think it is, Scott? So pretend like you don't believe in gravity. Gravity doesn't exist here. Things aren't falling because of forces outside of them. We think that heaviness is a property of the object itself. Remember, we're talking essence here. We have a science centered around the notion of an essence. Okay? So let's actually back up. Let's sort of respond to this whole Copernican notion of the solar system, right? What do you think? What do you think could be some possible common sense objections to our Earth moving through space and time? Some common sense ones.
To substantiate his claims?
To reject Copernicus.
Okay, to reject him.
If you were like, dude, bullshit, the Earth isn't moving.
I would argue that we're heavy.
Yeah, we're heavy, right?
We're fucking heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we're exactly.
We're too fucking heavy to move.
Yeah, we're too heavy to move in this way. Duh. Yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, think about like a bird leaving it. So let's say a bird is on his perch. A bird is on his perch. That's a bird, all right? And down here on Earth, he sees a little earthworm. Okay? When he jumps off of his little piece of earth, that tree, and this earth is really flying through space, how fast does that guy gotta go to catch that fucking worm? I mean, as soon as he's up in the air off of our earth that's hurling through whatever that freaking void is, space, I mean, shouldn't he almost be slammed back into the tree? Or shouldn't, like, he would have to be super fast. He'd have to be faster than the world spinning to catch this goddamn worm. Right? Doesn't this sound like a stupid-ass story? Right? Have you guys ever wondered, like, how come you don't jump? How come if you're in a car? Have you ever wondered, when you jump in a car, how come you don't just get slammed into the seat? Like if the car was hitting, like, oh, I wonder how hard this car would hit if it would drive into me. And you go, oh, well, why don't I just get inside and jump? And they get slammed into the seat. But what happens? Fucking nothing. Why? Well, according to our old physics, when we evaluate this new idea according to our old physics, that sort of stuff should happen, but it doesn't. Okay, so let's think of these like common sense objections, right? And this is about the same level as like flat earther. That's why I am no flat earther, but I kind of feel for these guys. Because, yeah, there's lots of common sense arguments that get thrown around in favor of flat Earth, but they're wrong, right? Flat Eartherism is wrong, but it does make sense. It's weird, all right? Remember, this made sense for thousands of years,
Right.
but making sense isn't the criteria for it being true. What's the criteria for truth? If it matches the facts.
Right, okay. So,
What are some really common sense questions that get asked about this phenomenon? So he's dropping two different amounts of Earth, and they're falling at the same time. I think I'm not giving you an essential piece here. Copernicus he's not giving us calculative math, but he's giving us comparative numbers. So calculus hasn't been created yet. It's going to be created in lieu of this scientific revolution we're going through. Okay? But Copernicus comes with, or not Copernicus, Galileo comes with some comparative equations, sort of, well, I don't want to say equations either, some comparative figures that allow us to sort of almost fucking predict. We can predict the future. And so you get asked some weird ass questions here. So I give you some on paper figures, and I bring it to you, the university, which also happens to be the church, and I say, hey man, things aren't actually falling that in because they're heavy. It seems that they're falling because this is just how the particles, the collection of stuff, it seems like they're being determined to fall. They're being made to fall this way. There's nothing in either of these, essentially, that makes them fall away. There must be a force, right, that's pushing on them, and they go, okay, what the fuck? What do you mean? You sit there and go, okay, so here's like a bunch of BS, right? He's come up with a new comparative language, not English. English isn't cutting it for science anymore. Right, so he gives us a bunch of numbers and stuff, and I go, okay, well, that's weird. So you're telling me that the numbers are in these balls? What do you think Galileo says? Are you sure? I mean, if you crack it open, you don't see the numbers. This is how weird it's supposed to be fucking weird, right? You're supposed to be tricked. You cut these balls open, you don't see numbers. Or letters or whatever, right? You go, well, no, they're not in the balls. And you go, okay, so they're all around the balls. And that's obviously not true. You go, well, that's not exactly right either. And so you go, okay, so then what the fuck, dude? You're literally going to stand here and predict the future. And you're going to literally trash every single thing we believe physically. This is not good. This is actually kind of scary. This should, like, if this were to happen now, right? Like people who read, like, watch those like 15-minute videos on like quantum physics and stuff, and they start getting that weird fucking nervous feeling. Right? Yeah, it's the same kind of thing, right? Except a lot more upfront, right? Except a lot more significant in a way. It seems, so as these ideas start to develop themselves, it seems that this new language, this language of not English, not heavy or light or hot, But it seems that this language of math allows us to predict the future and explain what can't be explained using the old physics. Okay. This actually sounds cool. Oh man, cool. We just leveled up, right? We just put it's got a new scientific engine here. We got a new set of propositions that give us better, or that get us closer to the truth. And you would think that the churches would be like, oh hell yeah. But if this disappears, yes, there we go. All that metaphysics we had before is in big ass trouble. Identity disappears. Purpose disappears. God potentially disappears. And ironically enough, I just put K. Knowledge disappears. Knowledge is going to be gone. Okay, so shit. Why do all these things disappear? Well, we got some sad, crazy questioning that's going to come out of this. If I can predict if the future, if this new science, this science with math, not description of essential properties, if we reduce everything to just particles in motion, and then we use the math to know how in the future how these particles are going to behave, what does that mean for potentiality? Potentiality and identity are going to be, they're going to have their ass kicked by the same guy right here. What's wrong? If I could predict the future and repeatedly predict the future, why does my purpose, telos, right? So this potentiality, and why does my identity both get put into so severe problem here? This is such a hard question.
Maybe it challenges free will, maybe?
Yes, there we go, perfect. If I talk about the way I'm supposed to be, and that I'm either good or bad, if I fulfill my purpose. But if it seems that our most basic property about us is actually our atoms, and our atoms are just particles, and these particles are behaving in a way that is determined by forces outside of it, determined to the point where the future of the physical world seems to be fixed. Well, shit, so much for potentiality. How much potential do I have in a world in which all the particles are determined to behave the way they are by forces outside of them? There's no essence anymore. I have no identity. I'm just a collection of particles, just like the rock rolling down the hill. Is the rock rolling down the hill in charge of where it lands? No, it's just force. And our new science is so much better off at explaining why things behave that it's able to freaking predict the goddamn future. This new language of math, before math was nothing but for weirdos like Plato and Socrates. Over the front of the academy it says, "Let no man enter who is ignorant of geometry." Math was just about understanding the perfect forms. But now it seems like math is telling us about the world, but we don't see the math. But somehow the new scientific language allows me to see the future. And it's a future that doesn't seem that we can escape. And if I don't have the freedom to choose who I want to be, right? Well then, so much for being a good person. And think about it. Why do we put people in prison? Well, because we assume that they had a choice. But in a world with no freedom, there's no choice. And if the world is just like this marker doesn't choose where to go, right? Maybe everything about me is the same way. Do I have any forensic evidence? Well, no. In fact, I can even explain you away, physically, right? I don't have to appeal to some weird choice-making faculty in you, some essential property that allows you to reason and decide things. No. And if there's no essence driving my behavior, but instead just external forces, then there's no identity either, because my identity was my essence. So there's no me, there's no freedom. Whoops. Clearly, God may be removed from this question. Okay. It's not outright disproved. If you're a Calvinist, you're probably like, oh, well, hell yeah, right? And it's by no mistake that Calvinism is going on. The Protestant movement is going on not too far away from the scientific revolution. Another reason why the Catholic Church is freaking out. They're losing on the academic front, even though most people putting forth the scientific revolution is a part of the church entirely, like committed to the church. But also on the theological front. Right? That's why there's so much Protestantism that doesn't allow for freedom, that we're preordained by God. So it's not necessarily that God goes away, but our whole system that we use to understand God through, like identity, essence, purpose, it's gone. And so what about knowledge? Why do you think now this is the trickiest question. And this is going to be the biggest benefit, I think, of the meditations. The one that lasts today. So David Hume is going to completely wreck Descartes. But the one argument that's going to stick from Descartes is going to be this implicit knowledge argument. Why do you think knowledge goes away if we're all just particles in motion and we're not in charge of how we behave? So knowledge, if we remember from the Meno,
it's recollection.
It's recollection, right? But so that's how we know.
Right.
But knowledge was at the end of the Meno, so K equaled justified true belief.
There's nothing justified.
Yes, fucking perfect.
So we may believe the truth, right? But if I am not free to evaluate evidence, then I'm never going to be justified, and I can never have knowledge. I can only be lucky.
if I'm not free to evaluate evidence, if I'm not free from bias, so if everything about me is determined for me, then I'm never actually evaluating evidence unbiasedly, but instead everything I believe is chosen for me, even if I have the illusion that it's not. So yeah, knowledge becomes an impossible state of affairs for us. Anything we believe, even if it's true, we just got lucky. I can't be held responsible for anything, not just whether or not I'm a good man, but whether or not I have obtained knowledge. So shit, right? No kidding, we're freaking out. Our relationship for God is in shambles. You know, our identity is gone. We have no essential purpose anymore. And the church is panicking. It's panicking to the fact that they're lighting people in France on fire. Right? Okay. So while I do not condone lighting Frenchmen on fire, you do got to sympathize with people who you assume have to be saying something so freaking wrong. Right? It's got to be wrong. Why? Cool, because I know a lot of things. Right? And man, I chose to come to work today. I chose to watch this video. Right? This and that. But guess what? Our new science, the science where not observation is king, but instead proof. This science is giving me no reason to believe any of the stuff I used to believe. Okay, so then where the hell does Descartes come in? Right. So for those of you that started reading that should have already finished the meditations, Descartes is going to be a radical rationalist. The new science is not an empirical based science, but instead it is a rational proof based science. Okay? It is going to be a science of mathematics. Okay? Back in the day, our little STEM disciplines would have not been STEMmed, it would have been STE. No math. Math would have been left for the weirdos. Right? It's still brand new, yeah? In fact, calculus is going to be birthed post meditations as a way to finally put an end to the classical period and create the modern period. The modern period marks from Descartes' meditations on, okay, till about the end of this guy Immanuel Kant, which is going to be a rejection of all this realism talk, okay? The modern period, this new science, is bringing about a brand new realism about math and science together. Math-based science, rational science, rationalism, the same crazy stuff, okay? The same crazy stuff that made Plato and Socrates, that made them so prolific, is it made a revival at the end of our medieval period with the scientific revolution. Okay, but Descartes wants us all to chill out. Okay, this new science, this new rationalism is actually the best thing for us epistemologically. That knowing things through math is actually our best case situation. However, we do not need to, one, reject our identity. We don't need to believe that we are determined by the physical world. and we don't need to believe, or actually, now we can actually, by reason alone, we can actually, in the same way, you are giving proofs. So proofs are just formalized inferences, right? So 2 plus 2 equals 4. This is a proof where 2 and 2 are my premises, and my inference is going from things I know, like 2 plus 2, like 2 and 2, and then going to 4, right? We're doing this in our science. We are going to actually be able to prove that God exists as well. The new science is going to give us science or mathematical proof for God's existence. And if God is real, I mean, if our formal systems, if our proving systems are predicting the future about the world, then we're also going to have to contend that the other proofs about it, like God, are also going to have to be about our world as well. So Descartes is going to say he's going to chill the church out. Chill, bros, right? This is what the meditation is about. What can I know from reason alone? The same reason that's given me all this new science. What can I know? And what does this new knowledge do in terms of our old beliefs, like essences, knowledge, in God? Okay, so here we go. This is where we're at. Descartes is going to pacify the church's attitude towards the scientific revolution. Right? All right. Do you think I should stop it now and then start a new thing to go through our questions, or just go through the questions? No, I'm going to go through the questions. I want people to watch this whole thing. All right. So in the meditations, I have printed for Scott, Stephen, and Freddie a copy of short answer questions about the Descartes reading. When it comes time for the midterm, you are going to have to be able to look back at this video and listen to my answers about these questions. You're going to be studying for the midterm with these questions, okay? So I'm just going to start with Descartes' meditations, or the questions for both 1 and 2. I'm going to try to keep this relatively short. So not so much lecture on the content of Descartes, but hopefully Descartes will be fully explained through this question, or these questions I'm giving you. All right. So question 1. So this should be listened to after you read the meditations, okay? What must Descartes do if he is to establish anything in the sciences that was stable and likely to last? Oh, you know what I should do? Maybe I should just upload this and go over the answers right away on Tuesday. What do you think? Do you want to go through this? Would you like to go through this, and then we'll do it on Tuesday together?
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, no, but then we would have to do I wish you had more days. Okay, guys. I'm actually going to pause it here. Yeah? I hope you guys watch this whole thing. I'll be uploading these questions pretty quick for you guys to look at. Yeah.